Welcome to the Cultivate Church Planting Podcast. We believe that the gospel is the hope of the world and that the world needs more gospel-centered churches. Okay, welcome to the Cultivate Church Planting Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Kelly, and today we've got our guest co-host, Shannon Quintana, with us again, back for more.
Hello.
And you probably can't see us right now, but she's like basically laughing at me with that introduction. So thanks for that.
Myself.
Thanks for the support, Shannon.
Hey,
And today on the show we have back again Pastor Bill Welsh, who just so happens to be Shannon's dad.
Proudly
right.
so.
Shannon's dad.
That's right. I'm sandwiched between my boss and my dad.
Yeah. And Pastor Bill has planted churches in other countries, in Australia, and Shannon, you lived in Australia. How long did you live there? I didn't ask that last time.
3.5 years. We moved there when I was 15, and we left when I was 18.
Okay.
I conveniently missed out on my driver's license in California because we moved when I was 15. I missed out on it there because you have to be 18.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
But I probably shouldn't have been driving before I turned 18 anyway.
Bethany got her
probably for the
driver's
best.
license there, didn't she?
She did. She was a year and a half older than me, so.
If you don't like my driving, stay off the sidewalks.
That's right. It's hard driving on the other side of the road. I tried it once. Jesse and I went back on a trip.
Especially when you're in America and you try to drive on the wrong side.
Right?
It's really tough because the cars are coming at you.
Oh, man. And I reverted a couple of times. I did really, really well. But if I was driving down like a country road or a city, not a big city street, but like a neighborhood street, I missed my turn. I'd pull into a driveway and back up, and then I'd be on the wrong side of the road.
Yep.
I don't know how that happened, but yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you switch pretty easily because we lived in Uganda. It was on the other side. New Zealand was the other side. So you can switch back pretty easily, but when there's no cars around to give you guidance, it's like, whoa, you kind of revert still. Mm-hmm. And another thing is the blinker on the wrong side, too.
Oh, yeah.
You'd always turn on the windshield wipers.
Oh.
That's right. I'm
yeah.
thankful that the gas pedal was on the right side.
Yes.
On the proper side.
Because that's the important
thank
one.
God that's not
the brake,
different.
not so much. All right, thanks for coming back on the show, Pastor Bill. And
great to be with
we
you
have
guys.
your daughter and son-in-law held hostage here, so you're going to be in Florida quite a bit.
I hope so.
I hope so, too. I like you. So.
I like you too, brother.
Keep you around.
Yeah, we'll keep you around. Shannon and Bill are both excellent singers, songwriters, musicians, and I'm not even exaggerating because, I kind of grew up. I'm one of those guys that I can appreciate talent, but I'm not so talented myself. So when it comes to
don't say
that's
that.
true though.
No, you can't say that about yourself. It's just different talents. Different talents
Thank
that
you.
I would envy.
I was hoping you'd say something like that.
Fishing.
First question: what do you think my greatest talents are?
Take your time. List them all.
Take your time.
For a second.
We've got plenty of time. And I've asked Pastor Bill to come back on, and then Shannon to co-host today to talk about the importance of music, and more specifically, worship music in a church plant, in a church in general, but especially in a church plant. And so we're going to be talking about that and getting into the details. And you guys this is your area of expertise. So I'm looking forward to it. Let's get started right away by asking the most important question to you, Pastor Bill. What is your favorite genre of music?
Oh, can I just give you a name? Can I give you a
give us a name.
songwriter?
You can sing us a song, actually.
Of my
if you want to.
generation.
Yeah.
And it's I love a lot of Christian music. I love a lot of the songs of the church. But I love James Taylor.
Ooh.
I've always loved him. I've loved his writing. And
wow, yeah. How could you not?
So easy to listen to.
And
So
Bob
smooth.
Dylan. I love Bob. And Bob, you say you like Bob Dylan, and it makes you suspect in a lot of people's minds. But he was
I do too.
just a prolific writer.
Don't you feel like you have to be in the right kind of mood to listen to Bob Dylan, though?
Is he the one with the scratchy voice?
Yeah, the voice.
Oh, yeah. I don't think I ever got into Bob Dylan.
Is he the one?
Oh,
Like,
and when you
she's an expert in music. Who's that guy, Bob Dylan? Never-
And when you say Bob Dylan, you've
Just shows
also
I'm not an expert.
he had a good catalog of Christian music that he did.
Yeah.
When I guess you'd say he walked with the Lord for a while. At least he sang. He wrote it. I think about three albums of great songs.
Wasn't he friends with Keith Green?
Yeah.
Too?
Keith Green. Now that's some good writing right there.
That's some good stuff.
Yeah.
It's like reading James.
Keith Green.
Read
It's like reading
James,
James.
and listen to Keith Green, and
Keith
you'll be
Green.
like, I gotta get saved
and
again.
then you'll be just depressed.
Yeah.
No.
Good stuff though.
No, I agree. I totally agree.
And Rich
I love-
Mullins.
Yeah.
Good, like gritty writing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So good.
Prolific too. Yeah.
Yeah. So James Taylor, good.
There's one song right now that is really, really captured me. I was walking along on a morning, listening to some music on my headphones on Spotify, and just I think I typed in new worship songs.
Yep.
And it was from Jen Johnson up in at Bethel, and it's called "For the One." And,
Ooh.
oh my gosh!
So good?
Yeah, it really is. And let me be filled with kindness and compassion for the one for whom you died and gave your son.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
And then at the end of that line, it says, "Increase my love." Oh, and the rest of it, I for 3 days I just looped it, and
I love it when you get a song
cried
like
as
that.
I was walking
Yep.
down the.
Repeat.
Yeah.
Just put it on repeat.
Repeat.
Yeah.
Give me the tissues.
I don't think I've
repeat.
heard that song, but I love that thought of, especially as worship leaders, pastors, people who are on the stage in front of a lot of people. It can be hard to remember that you're not there just for people. You're there for individuals.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that I learned way too late. I feel like I learn everything late.
Yeah.
Like I'm always late to the party, but I remember I'm a more introverted person. I'm very outgoing. I love talking to people, but I recharge more on my own. And I just have 2 speeds, on and off, right? Like when I'm off, I'm off. And I would be this worship leader who was like a green room worship leader, you know? I'd go and lead worship and I'd just
Yeah.
hang out in the green room. I wouldn't talk to people because I'd be like,
Famous
just really
person.
introverted. It just really wears me out, you know? And I remember a friend of mine was talking about, you know, when she would have people come to the church to lead worship or whatever, and she would say, I just hate when people, you know, lead worship and then they go in the green room. And I'm like,
Yeah, I hate that
I
shit.
hate that, you know, but
those people
I
are the
really
worst.
respected her. And so I really took it to heart and was thinking, okay, Lord, if I'm supposed to change that, you're going to have to change my mind because I'm just really introverted. It was almost something I was like
Like an
God,
excuse.
I'm just really introverted. And he spoke to me and he said, it's not because you're introverted. It's just because you don't love people enough.
Wow.
And I was like, ugh. And so I had to
Then you
put it
played a
into
Keith Green
practice.
song.
Yeah, exactly. But I really had to put that into practice. Okay, this event, this women's event I'm leading worship at starts in 20 minutes. I have 20 minutes to go out there and talk to people. And at the beginning, I have to be honest, I was very like, okay, 20 minutes, I could do this. It was just a
Yeah.
discipline. But over time of doing that, the Lord really gave me a love for what I was talking to people about. Like I found myself, I really wanted to be engaged. I really wanted to talk to them. And now they're like, hey, Shannon, we got to start. Like you're talking,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And in the past, I had perfected the wave by at church. Like, hey, so good to see you. Hey, good to see you. But not really getting involved with people.
The wave by.
Yeah. I have that perfected. So anyway, I love the idea of that song. I'll have to give it a listen.
Yeah.
Okay, Pastor Bill, you at Refuge, Calvary Chapel, Huntington Beach. Church has been there for a while.
Yeah.
Pretty good sized church. You've got a worship team, probably multiple. I mean, what's worship look like at your church?
Yeah, there's a community of musicians that rotate in. Our current worship leader right now is a guy named Jesse Rodriguez. He's very
Not
very
your Jesse.
No,
Mama Jessie.
Oh,
very
he's here.
gifted young man. We knew him as a drummer.
He was a drummer when I was
He was
leading
a-
worship at Refuge. He was a drummer,
drummer.
at 15 years old.
And a
He
good
was
drummer.
Incredible.
His dad was an incredible drummer too. And I saw him one day with a guitar, pick up a guitar. I thought, oh, this will be good, I guess. And, oh my gosh.
Incredible.
He's good.
Wow.
Yeah, he's a multi-instrumentalist, and he plays drums. Sometimes he
vocalist.
plays, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
talent. My brother started off on the drums in a hardcore band, of all things.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Double
Double
bass. Ooh, jinx.
Yeah.
Jinx.
You owe me a Coke.
So, yeah.
And then he went to country music and guitar and then worship leading.
Yeah.
Because you can't play country music and also be a worship leader at the same time. Can you? Is that debatable? or
Sacrilegious.
Sacrilege. Or can you?
Uh-huh.
So you've written songs. You've got CDs.
Yeah, I think I realized the other day There's, I think, 5 that I've done,
Okay.
but only 2 that were, what I would say, some kind of decent production. Ran into a guy that went to Israel with, and he turned out to be a very, very gifted. He's a great player too, and a really decent singer. But he's been producing for years, and people like Amy Grant and
Cool.
Alison Krauss and James Taylor. He did James Taylor
Is that right?
when James was singing
Wow.
on an Alison Krauss record.
Huh.
Oh, wow.
But so he helped
Did
me
you ever
some
get to
stuff
meet
as
James
well.
Taylor?
No, but I'd love to.
Yeah.
But I got to meet Stephen Curtis
Oh, I saw
Chapman.
that. Yeah, I saw that on your Instagram, Stephen Curtis Chapman.
I was walking through the airport on this
On the Great Adventure.
current trip, and I saw a guitar case there, and I thought, that's a really good looking. I mean, that's like a expensive guitar case.
Yeah.
I looked at the guy sitting there. I thought, I passed by that could be Stephen Curtis Chapman. So anyway,
Could it
I
be?
got to
Could it be
say hi
Stephen
to him.
Curtis?
Yeah.
Is that you?
Does he go by
SCC?
Stephen or Stephen Curtis or just Steve?
SCC,
SCC, yeah.
First close friends. Yeah. How was it, Dad, when you did church planting in Australia? You were the pastor plus you were the worship
Oh,
leader,
yeah,
correct?
good
When
question.
you first moved there?
That's
Yeah,
a-
I mean,
that's
I know we were
yeah.
sponsored into the Anglican Church. If you didn't listen to the first episode, you should.
Go back and listen to the episode
listen.
number 1.
Number one. But we were sponsored into the Anglican Church. But then when we planted the church officially,
right.
you were pastor and worship leader.
right, along with you and Bethany.
Well, I mean,
you
I
guys
was
sang.
15.
Well,
I wasn't that much of a worship leader back then. I just liked to sing
you were
and be
more
on
of a
stage,
singer.
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great to have that ability too. When we did Desert Hot Springs, when I was teaching I was pastoring, I guess, but it really was more just like filling the pulpit on a Sunday morning for this very, very rural church out in the desert, and I would lead the worship and also teach. So
That is a really, because I have a friend that does that in New Zealand, a buddy of mine, who has since gotten a worship team and only preaches, but he has the ability. I guess the big question, one of them I wanted to ask you, because I think worship and worship leading and worship leaders are such a big part of a church, and especially a church plant, because when you're planting, it's like, you think of a little sprout that's coming out of the ground. You want to get all the nutrients.
right.
It's like you got to really care for it.
yeah.
So the worship ministry is so important. What would you say to someone who's planting that doesn't have that worship leader or can't play themselves? I mean, is that a no deal issue or what?
I would say pray that person in.
Yeah.
Just pray that person in and ask among your friends, and maybe you've got someone that you can borrow from another fellowship, or someone that will come for a time. But and I knew churches that would put together. Well, this isn't the day, a cassette tape,
Right.
and they would
Like a mixtape.
pop it in,
Mixtape,
and
yeah.
the church would sing to that to begin.
For
with.
those of you who are listening that are under the age of, what is it now, 25 or something?
I don't know. It's like a Spotify
A tape
playlist.
is like a Spotify playlist, like a physical
On a
copy.
tape. But you just had to work harder to create it
Yeah.
back then.
But pray that person
Play
in.
and record.
I remember. You remember Jack Hayford?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I remember him at a conference I went to up at Church on the Way in Van Nuys, and it was on worship and the importance of worship, and that the church needs to lift their voices to sing to God, there's a whole other discussion here on. I believe that it's my generation that has changed the definition of worship, and where we've come down to a primary definition that has so much to do with music and singing, which you cannot quantify out of the Bible.
Yeah.
When Jesus said the Father's looking for worshipers, he wasn't saying that
Someone
God
who
just
can
really
shred
wants
on
a
the
choir.
guitar.
Yeah, and the first mention. You remember the theme of it's more like the. What am I looking for? The idea of, if you want to understand a theme in Scripture,
First
the rule
mention.
of first
Yep.
mention. Go back to where it's first mentioned. And I was the worship leader at a little church out in Sky Valley, which is near Palm Springs. And the woman who her and her husband had planted this retreat center and started as a home for unwed mothers, she came to me and she gave me a list. And it was divided right down the middle. And she said, Bill, I put together all the praise and worship songs that we do. And so you just know, here's our playlist, basically. She didn't use that term. But the only difference between the praise songs that were on the left side and the worship songs that were on the left, guess what it was?
Timing?
timing, the tempo.
Yeah, tempo.
And I looked at that
I
list.
knew something.
Yeah.
Brian, you're so skilled.
You know the RCA Victor dog who's got his head kicked sideways like
that's
that?
me.
I remember looking at that list like that and thinking, I wonder if there's more of a difference between those words,
that,
praise and
yeah.
worship. So I started this this search, and it didn't take me long to find that the first mention of worship in the Bible is when Abraham says to the men who have come with him as he's gone out to give his son to God, he says to them, "Stay here. My son and I will go into the mountain, and we will worship, and we will return." And he doesn't say, "Hey,
Hand me my
Isaac,
guitar."
buddy, go grab my guitar, and don't forget the song sheets."
Yeah.
And you really can't quantify what the definition that we have today of worship. But
Interesting,
words
yeah.
morph, and in the dictionary there's an A, B, C, and D definition. And when you talk about worship in the church, we're talking about music.
Do you think that would affect the way that people, quote unquote, worship the Lord with music if they had a real understanding of what true worship was?
Yeah.
That it's not just music?
Yeah, I think it would.
I think it's like a whole education thing. I feel like everything we do can be worship. Every conversation I have can be worship. It can also not be worship. But I can choose to worship the Lord in my conversation if what I'm speaking about is a
Yeah.
spirit-filled conversation where you're talking about like, oh my gosh.
Are
the
you
Lord was
worshiping right
showing me
now?
this. I am.
Okay.
I feel like this
All
is
right, just
worship.
An
checking.
offer,
Like, is it
an offering to
glorifying
God.
the
Yeah, yeah.
Lord, you know? And worship, quote unquote, worship music can also not be worship.
Right,
Like you could just
yeah.
be singing songs and singing words,
But it has no
and
meaning-
it has
nothing to
zero
you, yeah.
meaning to you.
I remember
know?
one Sunday morning, and I had led this Sunday morning. No, I didn't lead, but I'd been at every service, standing there in the front row. I'm singing, and when I sing, I want to sing strong. And the last line of the fourth song, every service was, and something like, and I give all I am to you. And I realized at that moment that I'd spent most of that time thinking about the message I was just about to speak, and those words were just words pouring out of my mouth until I got to that part, and I realized I hadn't been doing that. So I agree. I think what we call worship is a musical expression of praise to God,
to God.
and surrender to Him. And if it's coming from that point, then it
That's
fits.
great.
into the category.
Musical expression in the local church, especially in a young church, a church plant. I mean, just practically speaking, having that worship person or leader. I mean, I've even talked to guys who are church planting right now within Cultivate. We're helping them get out there. They don't have anybody to lead worship. They're praying them in. They're looking. What do you think about doing like a video or like a Hillsong or something on the?
Well, like you were
over
saying
the-
before, like the playlist. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Like playing,
Just playing
a
it on their-
Spotify playlist
yeah.
and singing along to it.
Playing
I've
the tape.
heard of people do that for small groups and stuff. If they don't have a worship leader, they just set up a list. I mean, that's got to be hard, right? Because that's not what you envisioned when you're
Yeah.
planning it. Again, managing expectations.
Well, what about, I mean, if it comes to you're going to go plant and you're not started yet, do you think that's something a strategic person, even, to get started, or can you start without a worship leader?
That's a good question.
I think there's no question that one of the core, in fact, it's a commandment in the New Testament as well as in the Old Testament, where it says, sing to the Lord.
Yeah.
Sing psalms, hymns, and
So it's
spiritual
important.
songs. There's more mention in the New Testament that orders us to sing than there are commandments telling us to gather together on Sunday morning at 10 a.m. And so when the church gathers, and they will gather because people gather together with people of like mind, and
Yeah.
people who love Jesus will get together. And Scripture says when you do that, sing.
Yeah.
And sing with all your heart. I love how David in the Psalms says, Lord, I worship you with all my heart. And that's a challenge.
It connects it again back
Yeah,
to the
it's
heart.
an intentional thing
Yeah.
that you do. But I would say it definitely is a key part of a church plant, I think, because the people that come need to express their praise to God. There are, when we talked about it in the last podcast too, but when we moved in with that Anglican church in Melbourne in 1991, that's when we moved there. One of the first things I did, one of the first weekends we were there, I was asked to teach for the more high church services they had.
Ooh,
They had
yeah.
3. The last one was a family service in the fellowship hall because the old brick church was really small. But the second one was a sung service. The first one was called a said service. There was
Okay.
no music, but there was congregational. It was a liturgy.
Okay,
So
yeah.
the congregational
Like call and
thing,
response,
call
right?
and response.
Yeah.
But all of it was just said. It wasn't sung, and so it was just learning the culture of that church was a real challenge for me, especially when it came to preaching.
Oh, yeah.
Because I thought, in our church, when the message is over, there's maybe one more song. There's a prayer and a song, maybe an invitation. Well, when the message was over in the said service, in the sung service, there was a whole lot more liturgy, and I didn't know that.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I preached myself out of time, and they had to rush through communion. But
I've done that before. Rush through. Oh yeah, we have communion
Oh,
today.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we're not a very high church liturgy. Oh, oops, forgot communion. Oh, let's do it.
We're doing communion right
Yeah,
now.
here
Shannon,
we go.
come on up. We're going to do another song.
but it really comes down to praying for that leader. And I'm not sure if I got to the point, because I'll distract myself very, very easily, but it was in that conference with Jack Hayford where he just said, pray in your worship team.
Huh.
Pray in a good
advice.
piano player. And that was his context was a good organ player that knows and Jack was such a gifted musician. He had hand signals he would give the organ player to go to 4 flats or 3 sharps. He
Really?
could
Wow.
have fingers up
I
or
didn't know
down. He
that.
knew music, and
Don't
he
ever
was
try that with me.
kind of the leader. I wouldn't know.
I'll be like,
peace.
So,
we're praying for Brian. He's throwing gang signs in the back.
and I believe God will answer that prayer too. By the way,
That's good advice. Praying in that worship leader. Okay, now the second question, which I guess is related to the first, of getting someone in there at a church plant, a worship leader, the only way I can ask this is, how much skill do they actually need to have? Because we've all been around ministry for a long time, and it's kind of like those episodes of American Idol where the girl or the guy gets up there and sings, and it's just horrible,
Yeah.
and then Simon Cowell says, "Do you really think you sound good?" It's
Right.
kind of like, I mean, how much skill is required? Because we're not looking for a Shannon Quintana or anything, at that top level at a church plant, even though we have one. So
Well, I would say aim high. I definitely would say aim high.
yeah.
But I think there's a starting point, and if we're launching and the date is here and we haven't found the Shannon Quintana, there's going to be. I believe
The
God
elusive.
will provide somebody.
Yeah.
But and I would say talk with some other churches in your circle of church family, denomination, or whatever, and maybe local Christian colleges that might be in the area.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
How bad is too bad, Shannon?
You're talking about it.
the skill level. The skill
Right.
level.
Well, it's kind of tricky, right? Because you gave the example of like an American Idol thing where clearly that person's family and friends have been lying to them, like for years, right? And
Oh, you sound so great, honey. It's
but it's
perfect.
a disservice to that person.
Yeah,
We talked
yeah.
about this. We were having
yeah.
a worship meeting about, welcoming new people onto the worship team and how to handle when somebody is, you can clearly see worship is not the gift that God has given them. And I feel like it comes down to like, that is a disservice to that person. They're now on live TV. We're talking American Idol, right?
Making an
live
embarrassment of
TV, they're
themselves.
making an embarrassment. People are going to watch it over and over on YouTube. And it's so much, it's just not loving, right?
No.
And I feel like our job as the church body and leadership is to love the people that God has brought us. And so I think I've done it poorly over the years in auditioning people or whatever, and just saying, well, I don't think you're really ready, blah, 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 trying to make myself feel better and not
Yeah.
being a jerk or making that person feel rejected. But really, if we can step back from it and say, look, God has given each and every one of us a gift. And there is an ease when we use that gift.
Yeah.
Like you preaching, there's an ease to it, right?
Yeah.
You preaching, there's an ease to it. But if you have other people who maybe there's not that ease, they're more gifted in another area. So it's more loving for that person to be where there is that ease. Like I'll use for an example, one of our guys here who was helping on AV here at West Church approached me one day and just said, Shannon, I'm not meant to be in this ministry. he's like, I want to have a panic attack every time I'm having to do the words. And you were talking about
The
how
words.
The words, man.
the
that's a
words are
ministry.
stressful
That's
It
because
is.
It's
everybody
stressful.
knows.
You mess up on the words, everybody's looking back.
They don't care what you
Like,
do
who
back
did
there
that?
until you mess up.
Yeah.
That's not
but-
the right slide.
I know. The old
But I
overhead
I
slides
feel
were
bad. Oh,
better
yeah,
because it was
yeah.
all right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then
But
you
I-
got your hand on the thing, the projector one.
Or you put it
Upside
backwards.
down.
You put it upside down. I
know.
can't read that.
But I just think like there should be an ease to it. And my goal as a worship, and this is, assuming that you already have a worship leader and you're wanting to bring people on.
A team
My
members.
goal is that whoever that person is, sure, they're going to be kind of nervous at first, but they should have the ability to get up, follow along, jump in. And if they're not and they want to learn, I'm more than happy to meet with people and teach them how to use their voice better or show them the few chords on the guitar that I know. But it's about loving that person, because if this is not their ministry, there's another ministry that's lacking because they're so focused on, no, I want to be on the worship team. I want to be on the
Yeah,
worship
that's right.
team, where maybe they're incredible with discipleship or prayer or children's ministry. And children's ministry is lacking because they want to be on the worship team.
Yeah.
You
So
know?
you're saying let's find our ministry, let's find our gifting, and when it comes to especially church plants, smaller churches, the worship person needs to have some level of
Yeah.
competency.
Well, yeah. You need to be able to carry a tune and
Yeah.
play through a song, like very simple things. When I started out, I was not that great. I would speed up because I'd be so nervous, and I only played piano, and I would listen back to those recordings, and I'm like, man, I am double the time by the end because I was so nervous, and I only knew a few
Do you still
chords.
lead, Bill? Do you still
Yeah,
lead?
occasionally I do.
Okay. Yeah, you played last night. Beautiful.
Oh,
Still
thank
got
you.
it.
Oh, thanks.
Still got
That
it.
was fun to
Great
sing
musician.
together. That was a
Yeah,
blast.
yeah.
Yeah, he's really good.
That was good
But I
stuff.
think skill is, people need to be able to, it's more of a distraction if somebody's up there and it's not good.
That's a good point. It's like, oh, I led worship the other day.
When I was
we have church on the beach every Thursday, and Shannon was out touring or whatever she was
just
doing,
playing around.
On her
No, I have a
world
question
tour.
about that though. So when you are leading worship, you can lead worship when it's necessary, but is
Yeah.
there the same ease? In
I was
that as
actually
there
asking the
is-
question of what's the baseline, kind of for myself, like for my own nose. Should it have been done or
Am
no?
I at the baseline?
Am I,
I reached the
was this
foundation?
acceptable?
I think there's a lot of
My
people
wife
that
says it was good.
Oh, there you go. Lynn tells the truth.
She does actually.
She does.
I think there's a lot of people that count themselves out because we're so inundated with incredible streams of incredible musicians, whether it's Bethel, Elevation, Maverick City, and you see these lights and bells and whistles and everything, and that's what we've got to have. And I think
that's a good
I think sometimes that gets in the way itself, the overproduction of it. So where people are there for the spectacle, it's more like attending a concert. And you can attend, like I mentioned James Taylor. I could attend a James Taylor concert. I never have of all those that I've been
no.
to, but I could sing along. I could sing along with all of his words,
Yeah.
unless he's done something new. But I think there are people that count them out because they count themselves out because they feel
They're
like,
not
I'm
that.
not
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I don't have anybody that
Or
can
church
shred
planners
like me.
that leaders that count out someone who can actually do it, can get the job done because they're not.
That's right.
Someone
incredible.
that's going
Yeah.
to be able to. They're not. Trying to think of a worship leader. Cody Carnes, who's
Sure, Carrie Job.
Carrie Job.
That's
yeah.
who you were thinking of? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a matter of that person feeling comfortable. Like if I'm bringing somebody on the worship team, I want them to feel comfortable. I want them to feel loved in the sense that I'm not going to put them up there when they're not ready. It's not loving to put them
Yeah.
up there, and it's not loving to the church because it's just as distracting if somebody's like head down, like, oh man, I hope
Mumbling,
I do a good
yeah.
job. As opposed to like
Yeah.
if they are singing off key, I feel like that's just as distracting because now people are focused on that person.
Yeah.
Like, oh gosh, I hope they're okay. You know.
Let's go back to that point of because I'm not like these big bands and this big production. I mean, I love our church, and we've got Shannon in before Shannon, my brother. He's a very good worship leader and a worship pastor. But there are people that come in that are kind of like, we don't have the full band, we don't have the stage lights, we don't have the fog machine going with the lasers in your eyes. I went to a worship event one time. It was good. I worshipped.
Right.
And but the lasers shot. I thought I was going to lose my vision because they were shooting me in the eyes with the lasers. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, you get to that, and it's kind of like how do you feel about this, Pastor Bill? Like that mentality that since we're not, Hillsong or Bethel or Elevation or any of these other Maverick City, can anybody play like that? Maverick City, those songs are just so complicated, I feel like.
You can play them.
Okay, you can,
there's some that are kicked out.
The rest of us can't.
There are some songs you cannot play unless you have a full band. I stand by that. There are some songs that's just like, we're not even going to try that one.
I think someone needs to hear that out there
song?
in the podcast world. Don't try to play those songs if you're just a guy on a guitar.
Like, I think some songs you can definitely...
Do you have an example? Can you think of one?
I'm trying to think of one. There's a song by... I don't know if it's Maverick. I don't know who it is. I can't think of it right now. But it's called Freedom is Coming. And it is like a choir, full band. Like, it's an awesome song. And I practiced it in my living room, and I was all,
Nope.
we're going to need, like, the full band for this one,
Yeah.
But I think Brian asked you a question.
Yeah, about the whole big worship kind of expectation for churches and the feeling of small churches and church plants that they have to have a certain level of this big production type thing, or else it's not significant. And so it's almost like they give up. They don't. On the one side, it's like we don't have a worship leader, so maybe you shouldn't get going right away. But on the other side, here's someone who can play the guitar, they can sing mostly in key, they can play the chords mostly on time, and we can sing along too, but they're not given a chance, they're not given a shot because they're not these guys.
Yeah, they're not the A-team. That's been an ongoing question in my own heart. How have we overdone the production on a typical Sunday morning or church gathering that has drawn more of an attention to, and you see in some of those videos, because there's the internet is full of those sensational moments that you see the crowd down in what would in a secular concert would be in the mosh pit, and they're all up against the stage and they're looking adoringly up at the band that's there. And I just have a lingering question in my mind over that being healthy in a church. And I just have never had the desire to plant that kind of a church or to let something, and I'm not going to say it's out of control, but let something drift that way. When I came in one morning, it was I think it might have been Saturday night. We have a Saturday night concert. We have a Saturday night congregation.
The truth comes out.
There it is, folks.
And I had my sequin jacket on, and there was I thought we had a fire up in the lights over the stage, and I really was concerned. Said, we're running the fog machine.
Put some fog out there, yeah.
And I know we had a fog machine that we have used for plays and that kind of stuff. I said, no, let's not use the fog. We don't need the fog machine.
Yeah.
And so I've tried to foster that kind of culture where there's simplicity and just let the church raise their voice. I think sometimes you can have a mix, and even vocals. And I used to wonder if the church was a place to have the congregational singing was a time to mix in harmonies. And I used to feel like it wasn't, and I've gotten past that, for one thing. But to have a dominant lead line so people know what they can sing, but to not overproduce to where it becomes a spectacle for the congregation. I want to make it easy for the congregation to lift their voice. And one of the challenges is for Shannon and any worship leader is, what key am I going to sing these songs in for a general congregation? And it's just tough.
But we have differing views on that. I don't think there's a magical key. I think that I've talked to, like, teaching vocal at the School of Worship, I've talked to a lot of worship leaders who have been pushed beyond their range to sing in a key that is
the people.
and they're damaging their voice because they can make it work, but it's not really where
But
they
it's
should
for the
be.
people.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's you know what has been really great here at West Church, and it's been really cool, is that we have Lucas who leads worship, and then me as well, and he's an incredible leader too. And so we're able
We
to
have
kind
multiple worship leaders at our church plant.
Yeah.
Everyone. So
Good.
Sorry.
be jealous.
And do you guys sing in the same home key?
No, we don't. I mean, we are singing in all sorts of different keys. You know, Lucas will take the lead on this song, and so that'll probably.
It's really great.
Yeah.
It's
It really fits everything.
It's a God.
Oh, that's
It was
great.
through prayer too. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
my brother was great. That's how we started, and he's a great worship leader. But he was meeting people. It was a new church,
Yeah.
obviously. But when he left, and God called him to, he's a worship leader at an Acts 29 church in Reno now. Which God bless him. We're not bitter or anything anymore. It was a challenge, just to kind of have that transition.
Yeah.
It's interesting when you look at old church hymnals, and I'm not sure if it was always this way, but you see so many songs that are written in E flat, and you
What does
see
that
all
mean?
these. It's just it just means that it's in a range that they thought would be a comfortable
That was the
congregational
one, huh?
range.
Okay.
So I don't know if they felt like the average vocal range of the congregation fits in, and it's not always, the key doesn't always determine the melody line. The melody line can go way up into the rafters in any key.
Right.
But they were written in keys that they thought were more
good stuff.
general or more probably middle for the congregation.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, I grew up in the Church of Christ in New Mexico, and no instruments.
No
Oh,
guitars
that's
to
right.
tune.
No
That's right.
instruments,
From
but
the
the
devil.
guy would go up, the song leader, with a tuner, like a,
Oh.
so they get the right key.
Oh.
And it was, there's some Church of Christ that are pretty legalistic, and others that are just semi-legalistic. This was a good one. I appreciate this church, and it's since changed. They're no longer a Church of Christ; they're a community church now, and have brought musical instruments into worship after 50-something years. So it's cool.
Great.
But anyway, coming back to that, one thing I appreciated growing up was the hymnals with the songs, and you mentioned the harmonies of the congregation. Like there were different parts that different people would sing
Yeah.
in the church, and it could be really beautiful and worshipful,
Right.
even without instruments. Can you
Right.
imagine that? So I think back to your point, it's like getting it all back, simplicity. We have a motto here at our church: keep it simple.
Yeah, I
And
love
we've got
that.
a lot of people that have been burnt out on, the mega churches, and nothing against them or anything, but they're just not. There's not a personal, real, simple
connected.
expression
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
worship.
And people are singing. They're driving down the street in their car, singing to the radio. People love to sing. They're born with this. We're drawn towards melody, and we're drawn towards beat and music, and there's something about that. And so when you see the psalmists, and it's not just David that says it, but several of them say, just sing to the Lord with all of your heart. And Paul saying that in his letters as well. People are wanting to sing. So I want to facilitate that. I just want to make that as easy as possible for everybody to sing. We
That's
talked
the
about
goal.
talked about vocal ability, and there are some people that I'll hear in the congregation that don't sing well. They just don't. They don't hit notes.
Usually louder than everybody else.
And they do, yeah.
But the Lord likes it.
He
That's
loves
right.
it.
It sounds
He
the
loves
same
it.
to his ears. It absolutely
He
sounds
sees
the
the
same.
heart. He doesn't
does.
hear as man hears.
100%. Anytime somebody's like, I just wish I could sing like you, I'm like, hey, it all sounds the same to God.
Yeah.
And don't you feel like when you're all singing together, it does meld well,
Yeah.
and it's,
Oh, yeah.
it's nice.
Yeah, and if everybody's going to sing like
Yeah.
the one guy who sings out of tune or
Yeah,
just
that'd be
one
bad,
note
but-
all the way through Amazing
Yeah.
Grace, how sweet.
Yeah.
And then you won't even hear him because you raise your voice. You don't like what you hear, then raise your voice.
Yeah.
All
What
right.
I've really appreciated here, sorry, Brian.
No, go ahead. Go
Say.
ahead. If
We
you're going
had
to say
a-
something about what you appreciate here
Yeah,
about
then
me,
you
then go
go
right
for it.
ahead.
You've
got the mic.
Yep.
Well, we had a
Take
meeting
your time.
about worship and wanting to incorporate more people and build the worship team, because when I came on, there were just a few of us, which I loved. And we just kind of set that for a couple months. It was just the three of us, just kind of setting I guess, for lack of a better term, standard, consistency, as the church was kind of getting to know me, I guess, as a worship leader. But then we had a meeting about, building up the worship team. And actually, I think Lucas brought this and just said, we just need to remember that we want to keep it simple. And I was very clear, like, I don't want, there's nothing wrong with, like you said, big church, big team. I have my doubts about a fog machine. I don't know how we need that. But I think, like, that's really great and that's really fun. And I've enjoyed being a part of that for a long time. But I love the simplicity, and I have loved the ease. Ease isn't the word I'm looking for, but I've loved being able to just kind of chill out a little bit and just keep it simple. And hearing the people sing has been like just so sweet. And even when I first came, we've talked a lot about having a song list for the church. Like, should there be, we only sing these songs and they're always the same, or whatever it should be. And I came in after you guys had a couple different people lead and different people sing different songs in different ways. And something I really appreciated, and something I think Brian's really good at, and Justine, I've shared with him before, is just appointing a person to a position and saying, go for it, and giving us freedom to serve in that, which is awesome. Because I'm like, hey, like, what songs do you guys know? And he says, sing whatever you want. I don't even care.
Well, we're just learning. That's the beauty of a church plant, is you can create what you want to sing. And
so
learn.
It's just a matter of, like, this church's goal is to keep it simple. And so I love that, because I think simplicity is missing in a lot of those things. And a lot of those, I don't want to say things, but we can miss.
We want to know what you want to say.
We can talk later.
We can miss the spirit when we're trying to keep it so polished and so, like.
Yeah, that's true.
We don't want to miss the spirit. And it doesn't mean that you can only hear the spirit if it's quiet, simple worship. The spirit moves in the big, like, I've gone to a Hillsong concert before, and I'm like, wow, like, this is incredible, But I think if we're keeping it spirit-led, that's what matters the most.
And I think one of the core values, I guess you'd say, in leading the people in singing to God and worshiping, praising Him, is to realize that the people of any church are going to remember the songs that we sang on Sunday morning long after they've forgotten the message that the pastors, because they're going to carry it.
No, that's good. That's
it
good.
has the
How
hook,
important is worship?
It has the hook
good.
of melody and rhythm in it, and they'll walk out singing that, and they'll sit down for lunch with their friends. What did the pastors talk about today? But they'll have that, and it's a humbling thing.
Good.
So I want to make sure that what we're singing is truth. That it is theologically sound, but it doesn't have to read like a theology book. It's set like the Psalms in poetry and rhyme and rhythm, and it's portable. It has Velcro for our hearts, and you carry that truth with us.
Wow.
And I remember Pastor Chuck being a stickler on certain songs that if he liked the song and he didn't like one word, he'd have them either change the word or forget the song.
Really?
And there was an opinion he had at one point about, and when the heavens pass away, or till the heavens pass away, those scars will still remain. And he had an opinion that when the heavens passed away, or until the heavens passed away, the scars would remain. And I think the song read, when the heavens pass away, the scars will still remain. He said, I want you to change that. And he didn't like the song, Lift Jesus Higher, Lift Jesus Higher, because it was sort of a happy, clappy song that was taken from a
I remember him talking about that.
With crucifixion. But I appreciated that about him. I didn't always agree with his estimation on a song, but I want to make sure that we're singing truth.
And that's a great point, is attention to detail when it comes to doctrine. Because a lot of these songwriters, they have a catchy tune, but some of the doctrine is a little bit...
That's right.
It's
but you can get, I mean, I feel like we could just keep talking about this.
We
but
could,
maybe you can come back again sometime. All right, one thing that you wish you would have known then that you know now about worship ministry and church plants.
Go ahead, Jen.
No, you go.
No, okay.
This is my first church plant as an adult, so.
yeah, that's right. Well, what do you wish you would have known when you first started,
We'll let my dad go first.
A month ago.
I don't know how to answer that, because I was involved in worship and leading congregations in worship for years before I became a pastor or a teacher. So it was core to me, and I was anxious to bring that in, and I was always trying to keep current on song lists and playlists, and I think it's always important to be bringing in a new song, but not 5 new songs every week.
Okay.
And maybe not one
that's
new
good
song
advice.
every week. Just give the people I'm overusing.
There's a rhythm to it, and so what would you say is the magic number? How many new songs per month, per week? What is it, Shannon?
I don't think there's a magic number.
I don't either. I think it's
Trick
a
question.
congregation can handle a new song a month, I think, easily,
Okay.
and some are ready for a new song every.
And it's also helpful with the internet and stuff, and YouTube and Christian radio, because we're hearing a lot of
Yeah.
these new songs coming out, and they're getting used to them. And those who listen to Christian radio,
Right. I just don't think that there's, I don't know if it's just the rebellion in me, that when I hear, what's the magic number or what's the format, I'm all, buck against it.
That's it. I'm leaving. I'm
But
leaving
it's
this church.
let the Spirit move. There might be something where, I've already got a song planned for after Brian's message, and as he's speaking, I'm like, you know what? I really think we need to sing this song, because that's the song that I feel like the Lord's laying on my heart at that moment. And I really love when it happens that, and yes, I pray that the Lord will direct me in choosing the songs. But sometimes I'm like, well, let's see, I need a song in E because it'll go really well with this one. It'll come right out of that one. It needs to be slower. The message is about that. Yeah, we'll just throw that
Inside the
one in there.
mind
We'll
of
do
a
that.
worship leader.
But then I'll have played that song, and then you come up and speak, and it's like, and it's happened at every church. It's not just you. I mean, it's my dad or wherever I'm at, where I'm like, oh my gosh, his message is literally that
Lines
song.
right up, yeah.
And I threw that song in because I needed a song in the key of E, And so it's like, that's where I just throw my hands up. I'm like, Lord, you're awesome, because that was not me.
You can't make a program out of
No,
this. You can't,
that's totally the Lord, and it just
capture
makes
it in
me
a
thankful to be a
format.
part of what He's doing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just participating, and it's awesome when He does that, because it was Him and not you. You know.
And I do have one thing. I wish I would have been more deliberate at the very, very beginning in equipping, men and women and young people in the church, in the area of music to begin with, so that you can see who God is raising up to be another vocalist or to add to the team, to broaden that out as it becomes
that's good.
appropriate. But to be training people in that.
and put significance on the worship ministry.
Yeah.
That's great.
And you see that in the Old Testament when David is laying down the not just the rules, or God is speaking it in before David, but when they're putting together what will become the worship community, and David's inventing instruments to be played and all that in a temple he would never step into, that he's saying, call for good singers, put good singers up there, and so the people will sing along with. People sing along with great bands. They sing along with good music. And so I wish I would have done that more deliberately. I've just raised up the next
That's
leaders.
good. Final thoughts, Shannon?
I just follow the Spirit.
Wow. What's it feel like being part of a church plant? Worship leader as part of a church plant?
This has been really great. I feel like, I don't know, I feel like you guys have said the same thing too. We're just this has felt really easy, and God's
like
been
we're walking
bringing,
into it, like God's
amazing
prepared it, and we're
people.
walking
Right.
into it.
But
That's the best
It's
way.
awesome.
yeah, it's been, I feel like best case scenario. I miss my kids, but but other than that, I think it's been a
And your
really
dad,
sweet,
your mom.
healthy body to be a part of.
Yeah.
We've really enjoyed it, and we feel so supported.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I can feel that.
Love you guys so much.
I love you
Thanks again,
too.
Pastor Bill, for being on the show, and looking forward to hanging out with you and having you back on and getting some of your wisdom. That was interesting to hear about Pastor Chuck and his approach to worship and everything.
Yeah.
But thanks for being on the show. Cultivate Church Planning Podcast, www.cultivatechurchplanning.com. What's the tagline? We were going to come up with a tagline.
Cultivate, people cultivate.
Planning more gospel
Celebrate.
churches.
No, we've got one. I'll say it next time.
You can throw it in.
All right. Thanks for being on the show. God bless.